Why is meta such a deep feature of reality, you might wonder? What's so special about it? Why would reality be this way? Well, as we've talked about in the past, it's because reality is infinite. See, infinite means it has no limits. It has no outer boundary. It's completely open-ended. Infinite means there's always more. No matter how much of reality you've seen, there's always an infinite number more of reality that you haven't seen. That's the radical nature of infinity. If you want a deeper explanation of infinity, check out my 2-part series called Understanding Infinity Part 1 and Part 2. And beyond those 2 parts, I've also talked about it elsewhere as well. So reality is one, reality is infinite, or infinity, absolute infinity we could call it. But see, the problem is that us humans were finite creatures. And we create lots of finite closed systems via language, logic, thought, and symbols. We're always trying to grasp some little corner of reality, but every little piece of reality we grasp is not the whole thing, by definition. But then we take our little finite closed systems and we want to pretend as though they are the whole thing. But every finite closed system has a boundary around it. If it has a boundary around it, that means there's an inside and there's an outside. See, infinity is that which has no inside and outside. The inside and outside are the same. But in every finite closed system, there's always an inside and an outside. And this is where the problem happens. If you have a system that has an inside and an outside, that means you could be inside it or outside it. So to go meta is to jump from inside to outside. When you jump outside of it, you can see it. If you're inside of it, you can't fully see it. When you're inside of it, it seems like it is the total thing. When you're outside of it, you can see that, oh, this is just one part of something larger. Right? So since reality is made out of holons, we've talked about that in my episode called What Are Holons? Go check that out if you don't know what a holon is. So since reality is composed of these holons, you can always jump outside of one holon to a higher one, to a higher one, to a higher one, infinitely. Because that's what infinity means. It goes on forever. And why is reality infinite and not finite? Simply because there can't exist anything outside of reality that would constrain it or put a boundary around it, because anything that's outside of it, by definition, has to be inside of it. Here's where it gets paradoxical and strange loopy. Because if you had two realities, you might say, well, there could be two realities, but then those two realities have to be connected into one larger reality. Because what would be the thing separating the two? Any boundary between two realities. See, to say that there's two realities, that means you must say there's a boundary between them. What is that boundary made out of? Is it made out of something real? If it's not, that means there's not two of them. If it is, that means that real boundary has to not be either one or two, but a third thing. And if it's real, and this is real, and this is real, all three are real, that means it's reality, real, one. Sit down and think it through with a piece of paper. There's a pretty simple logic to it. It's not that complicated. Most people just don't want to do the work. So, as it turns out, truth exists. Truth and reality are identical. And truth is infinitely meta. Truth is the whole of reality. Everything that exists is truth, with a capital T. And that truth is infinite. It spans forever. It's endless. And this truth is transcendental. It can't be captured with symbols, thoughts, logic, or any kind of closed systems or language. Anytime you try to capture the truth in a closed system, you can capture a piece of it, but the piece is never the whole. It's an infinitesimally small piece of the whole. Therefore, you can keep talking and talking and talking and talking, but you're never, ever going to be able to reach the end of truth. Truth will always remain transcendental. Truth always escapes symbolic and systemic encapsulation. And if you want more on why that is the case, check out my episode called The Metaphysical Implications of Gödel's Incompleteness Theorem.
What if the universe depends on you? The widely accepted Newtonian model of reality is now getting questioned, as it is based on separation. That is, you the man, is living in a physical world. A world that obeys certain physical laws, like gravity or thermodynamics. And nature or the universe is separate and independent from you. But with the advent of quantum physics, things have changed. But this change is only in the world of science, it is nothing new in the world of spirituality. It was taught thousands of years ago by Hermes Trismegistus. That is, as above so below, as below, so above. Meaning, the world is a hologram. A light matrix that is likened to a mirror. It reflects back the consciousness that is being projected onto it. Essentially, quantum physics is coming to the same conclusion. That is, this reality that we live in might not be independent at all. As it might be getting shaped by the observers or the consciousness of man. You might be causing reality to appear a certain way. As in quantum physics, the idea of multiverse and infinite timelines is being explored now. Neville Goddard discussed it in his book, Thinking Fourth Dimensionally. That is, he theorized that the fourth dimension from which our three-dimensional world is being translated contains all the possibilities of your life that could possibly happen. Infinite world lines. Now in quantum physics, as Dr. Joe Dispenza suggests, there is an infinite field of possibility. Containing all the outcomes that you could possibly experience in your life. This infinite field of possibility or quantum field can loosely be considered the all that the book The Kybalion talks about from the teaching of Hermes Trismegistus thousands of years ago. To put it simply, if there is a field of infinite possibility and it contains all the possible outcomes of your life already, what determines which timeline you are experiencing now? Time is a 3D thing only. It is just a concept that is helpful in linear life that we live in this three-dimensional reality. Thus, time doesn't exist. So, in the higher dimension, all that you could be already is a fact. But you are here, living this limited life in this particular timeline. What is determining this particular timeline for you from the infinite possibilities in the fourth dimension? This is where the Newtonian model is slowly crumbling. And we are slowly moving from separation to unity consciousness. That is, the quantum field responds to the consciousness that is interacting with it via thoughts, feelings, and its state of being. This field is materializing that outcome or timeline for you that you have accepted for yourself via your state of being, thoughts and feelings. What you believe yourself to be, the mirror reflects back at you. If you do not smile in the mirror, you will not be shown a happy face. The mirror depends on you for its reflections. If you smile, it reflects a smile. The all, God, source, the quantum field, is mirroring your inner world. As the all, intended creation to experience infinite existences. Unique experiences, all the way to infinity. You see, the all will not meddle with your freedom of choice, as that spoils the fun. As it wants to experience unique adventures in life. Thus, in a way, it depends on you, the consciousness living a unique life, to continue the expansion of the all. Your freedom of choice is available to you at any given moment. You can right now smile into the mirror of infinity. And with some delay but invariably, it will smile back at you. The delay is only in the three-dimensional world. As this experience is linear. It must follow a series of events to lead up to the change in the mirror. But invariably, it must reflect what the individual is projecting to it. As it is being translated from the fourth dimension where it is already a fact that Neville talks about. Thus, if you persist in your assumption of who you want to be, it must obey. The mirror has no will of its own. If it did, there would be no authentic experience of the all. The all intends to experience what it is like to be you in this now. And it cannot have this experience if it forces its will upon you. You see, the infinite has made itself limited to have a genuine adventure of being you. It depends upon you in this now as its focus point to choose its experience. Essentially, you and the all are one. But here in this world, there is this veil of amnesia upon us all to simulate a genuine experience. It is like you have voluntarily allowed yourself to be brainwashed, to play a virtual reality game, to absolutely have the most authentic experience. So, when you get hit in the game, you actually feel it, as if you think it is real. But if you knew it was a game, you wouldn't be that scared for your life. As you know, your real self is unharmed. This is the reason why your life here can seem ruthless at times. And we look around and ask ourselves, how could a god allow this? Well, now you know that this God is not a separate being doing this to you. You and I are doing this to ourselves. By using the law of being in an unpreferable way. You act crazy in front of the mirror and it will show you an insane person. It cannot show you a successful and happy person. A few years ago, all I wanted was freedom. As I was feeling very stuck in my life. And the world proved me right. Then I stumbled upon the works of Neville Goddard. At that point in my life, I couldn't wrap my head around the notion that an all-loving God is putting me through all this pain. Either I am doing something wrong, or what I have been told about God is false. You see, God didn't reveal Neville's teachings to me out of his kindness, as the past me would assume. As I was told that God is a separate being and it has a will, and it decides who to save and who to not save. I presented to the mirror a question. The mirror responded with Neville. Then I proceeded to present to the mirror the consciousness of freedom, it responded back. Mind you, my environment that I felt stuck in didn't change. What changed was my inner world. I just felt amazing. I lived in a condo with a free gym, but I didn't go there for over a year. Why? Because I felt stuck in my mind. There were so many cool things around me for free that I didn't do, because I was a man living in the consciousness of a man who is stuck in life. Thus, I couldn't see all the awesomeness around me. And then what felt like an instant change in me, I began to notice all the freedom around me. All the opportunities around me presented themselves to me like magic. Which were there all along. As the book Acres of Diamond by Russell Conwell talks about. That is, a man was discontent from his life as he heard stories of fortune by other farmers. These farmers discovered diamonds on their land and became rich beyond their wildest imagination. He sold his acres of property to someone and went to search for diamonds. Not knowing that his own property had acres of diamonds lying around. The point is, before looking at the outer world, look within. Who you are being right now. Are you a man stuck in life? Well, the mirror will reflect exactly that and nothing else. As the mirror or quantum field, God or the all, depends upon you. You are the captain of your ship, the master of your fate. I have learned this shift firsthand in my life. As when I was stuck in life, I hated my job and wished for financial freedom. Thus, I began to project into the mirror, I am earning a lavish, steady, dependable income, doing something I love with ease. And the mirror reflected back ease of finances and a good life that I am satisfied with.
Christopher Nolan once drew a diagram to plan the dream levels in Inception. To him, it was cinema. But diagrams like this can also act as seeds. Blueprints for imagining how other realities might be structured. Physics already suggests that what we call reality may not be singular. Multiverse theories, quantum superposition, even simulation models all point towards stacked, hidden frameworks beneath what we perceive. So what if Nolan's sketch were reinterpreted, not as dream logic, but as a scientific pathway into deeper layers of existence? The first descent would lead us into the veil layer, the thin margin where perception and physics blur. Quantum mechanics already shows us that particles exist in overlapping states until observed. In this layer, reality itself feels undecided. Streets change, voices repeat, not because of imagination, but because probability hasn't yet collapsed into certainty. Below it lies the fracture layer. Here, time stops behaving linearly. Some physicists already argue that time may be emergent, not fundamental. In this layer, events stack out of sequence, past and future jostling to occupy the same moment. It resembles reports from near-death experiences, where minutes stretch into eternities and cause no longer matches effect. Deeper still is the reflective layer. Think of the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. Every decision, every particle interaction branching into new universes. In this place, those alternatives bleed through. You glimpse versions of yourself who made different choices, timelines where history turned another way. Each reflection is a real possibility, encoded in the structure of the cosmos. Further down is the archive layer, Cosmology tells us the universe holds information and nothing is ever truly lost. Black holes store it. Space itself records it. In this layer, that information manifests as living memory, not metaphor, but data. You touch it and experience lives that were not yours, because the universe remembers everything that has ever been. And at the very bottom, the zero layer, a vast expanse without time or matter, where the equations that govern existence dissolve. Some physicists call it the quantum vacuum. Others describe it as the simulation's code. Here, there are no objects, no moments, no self, only the raw potential for reality itself. Step too far, and you become indistinguishable from it. From a filmmaker's sketch, we arrive at a speculative model of reality itself. Not dreams, not fiction, but layers inspired by the very questions physics is still wrestling with. What is time? Where is information stored? And is our universe just one page in a stacked collection of worlds?
Sometimes people want to say, no, we definitely don't experience reality the way that it actually is. And some people want to say, yes, we do. Philosophers have been arguing about this for like as long as philosophy has existed. The question of, does your experience match reality, or are you really experiencing reality in its stark objective truth? And the answer is simply, not exactly. Reality for us is what we can sense with our sensory surfaces and what we can make sense of with the signals in our brain. The signals in our brain are as necessary for our experience of reality as the sensory signals that come from the world. So I'm going to use a metaphor to describe how the brain works. It goes something like this. Your brain, my brain, everybody's brain, is trapped in its own dark, silent box called your skull. And the brain has no knowledge of what is going on around it in the world or in the body, right? Because it's in this skull. And it's receiving sensory signals from the sensory surfaces of your body. These signals are the outcomes of some changes in the world or in the body. But the brain doesn't know what the changes are. It's receiving the outcomes. And that is what philosophers and scientists call the reverse inference problem. You start with an outcome and you have to guess at the cause. For example, if you hear a loud bang, it could be a car backfiring, a door slamming, it could be a gunshot. Your brain doesn't know what the causes are, it only knows the effect. And so it has to guess. And the guess is important, right? Because you would do different things if it's a gunshot versus if it's a windy day that slammed a door. And luckily, it has one other source of information, and that is your past experience. The really cool thing about this, if that wasn't cool enough, is that it's actually doing it predictively. Sometimes scientists talk about this as the brain running a model of the world. But the brain is not running a model of the world. The brain is running a model of its body. And it's doing it in this really interesting way. In psychology, a group of instances which are similar is called a category. In essence, what your brain is doing when it's making a prediction, it's creating a category of instances from the past which are similar in some way to the present in order to predict what's going to happen next, what the brain has to do next, and what your experience will be next. And so when a human brain is creating a category, you have to ask, what features of similarity is it using? Is it these sensory and motor features? An apple is round, an apple is hard and crunchy, or is it these abstract features? Abstract multimodal summaries of patterns of features. I could take a bunch of apples and I could say, well, these are good for baking and these are not good for baking. And these patterns, this summary, only exists in your brain. Because our brains are structured to construct categories based on the function of things rather than what they look like or taste like or smell like, humans can create something called social reality, which is where we collectively impose a function on objects that the objects don't have by virtue of their physical nature. So a really good example of this is money, little pieces of paper. We all agree that these little pieces of paper have a function of value. And it turns out that many things that we think of as being part of reality are actually like this. We can draw lines in the sand and create the borders of countries, which creates categories of people called immigrants and citizens. We can create governments because we all agree that certain actions, like making little tick marks, has a meaning to elect someone into a position that has certain powers. It's a form of social reality. In our lab, we work on the hypothesis that many psychological categories are forms of social reality. We impose a meaning on a scowling face that it did not evolve to have, but because we all agree that it has that meaning or that function in a particular culture, then it does. To say that your brain resides in a dark, silent box doesn't mean that you are trapped in that box. Your brain has this wonderful capacity to take bits and pieces of past experience and create something completely new that you've never experienced before. We call it imagination. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because our brains are so good at imagining and creating predictions that are not yoked to our immediate surroundings, sometimes we have a lot of trouble staying in the present. You have to practice your ability to control how much you want to be constrained by what's going on outside that box and how much you want to be free of it.
Each perception has two aspects, physical and metaphysical. We subdivide these two domains into the 5 elements of the ancient Greeks, Indians, and Chinese, then harmonize them with the standard model of Western physics. Instead of elements, we call these as layers: the ethereal, spatial, radiant, convertible, and material. These are like Photoshop layers that are on top of each other in a hierarchy. If one layer is missing, then the image is incomplete. Everything in existence is made up of some or all of these 5 layers. Physics studies phenomena based on energy and movement, but superphysics studies them according to how their properties fit the 5 layers. This gives a complete picture and understanding of reality.